Welcome to Measures of Truth, a His Dark Materials podcast. I'm Caitlin.
I'm Alan.
I'm Francis.
And I'm Anya. And today we're discussing the first very long, or maybe first 2 episodes, kind of unclear. Anyway, the beginning of the 3rd season of His Dark Materials, The Enchanted Sleeper and The Break.
These episodes were written by showrunner Jack Thorne and writer Amelia Spencer. She is an up-and-coming TV writer who has made several shorts and was a writer on the miniseries The Undeclared War, which broadcast in the summer of 2022.
Was that like a sci-fi fantasy war or a historical
it's like
real
2
war?
years in the future. It's like an election in Britain that's trying to be hacked.
Oh, is that the one with Simon Pegg?
It was Simon Pegg, yeah. She wrote all the episodes.
Looks really good.
Yeah. Good reviews. These episodes were directed by Amit Gupta, who will direct 5 of the 8 episodes this season. He is a writer-director of several movies, including Resistance from 2011.
So, to summarize, Will searches, well, sort of. I mean, it's 5 fucking paragraphs, so. Will searches for Lyra. He meets the angels Baruch and Balthamos, who tell him to join Lord Asriel. Will demands that the angels help him find Lyra first. Meanwhile, Lyra dreams that Roger is calling out to her. Every time she wakes up, Mrs. Coulter drugs her. Mrs. Coulter has been hiding Lyra in a remote stone house, waiting for Will to find them and relying on a local girl, Amma, for food.
Lord Asriel crashes his intention craft on a mysterious new world. With his Galavespian soldiers, Asriel infiltrates a prison run by the Temple to free Commander Ogunwe. Ogunwe is the leader of the resistance against the authority in his world. Asriel tries to recruit him, but Ogunwe resists. So Asriel invites him to his headquarters to see their war effort.
The angels locate Lyra and tell Will where she is. Balthamos agrees to guide Will while Baruch reports to Lord Asriel. When Will goes to Lyra's world, he finds Yorick in a fight with the townsfolk. Will settles the fight, and Yorick joins Will's crew. Will meets Amma, who tells him about Mrs. Coulter drugging Lyra. Will tries to sneak into the house, but Mrs. Coulter catches him. She tries to convince Will to join her in protecting Lyra, but fails to get him on her side.
Baruch and Archangel Alarbus fight above Lord Asriel's camp. They are both wounded and crash to the ground. Baruch tells Asriel about the knife, Lyra, and Will before he dies. Asriel imprisons Alarbus and tortures him for more information because everyone loves some light war crimes. Meanwhile, Father McPhail recruits Father Gomez to find Lyra and Mrs. Coulter. Gomez uses a spy fly to locate them and then leads a strike team to capture them.
Will and his crew make a plan to rescue Lyra. The Magisterium forces arrive and surround the house. Mrs. Coulter fakes an injury and tells Father Gomez that Will already took Lyra. The two continue to talk until Mrs. Coulter knocks him out with a rock. Will opens a window into Lyra's room and wakes her. Mrs. Coulter tries to join them in their escape. She distracts Will as he cuts a new portal, and the knife shatters. The Lady Salmakia poisons Mrs. Coulter to unconsciousness, and then Will and Lyra retreat outside. Yorick fights Magisterium soldiers as the teens retreat into the window Will left open, with Lady Salmakia secretly following. Right, general feelings. Moving swiftly on.
I felt a very similar to how I felt in this bit of the book. Like, some of it's okay, but also I'd like to get to the good stuff. I mean, there's too much Asriel, but other than that, it's fine.
See, I kind of liked the Asriel stuff.
I like it in a way. I think they do a really good job with him, especially since they're kind of trying to give him more depth than he ever had in the book. Because you can see him kind of struggle with caring about the war versus caring about Lyra. And I like that.
Oh, I don't think he struggles with that at all. He cares 100% about the war and 0% about Lyra.
Oh, I don't agree.
I
think at the
don't
end-
agree at all.
Yeah.
We'll come to
No.
that later.
Yeah. You're wrong.
No. And I like that they're doing that with him.
Yeah.
But also, I would like there to be less of him.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I don't think we need this much
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, he's not that interesting as a character, I'm going to be
So, like,
honest.
what we're getting is good, but why are we getting it?
Yeah, overall, I did really enjoy this adaptation, again, though there were a few exceptions which I did feel really detracted from the original mood and feeling and generally kind of make it a little bit too generic for me.
Also, much like the earlier seasons, there are a couple instances where the writers just genuinely think the audience is dumb
Yeah.
and need to hit us over the head with stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you don't.
Yeah,
Okay,
I want to
great,
talk
thanks.
about that opening animation because I feel like that's exactly the kind of thing that you're talking about, and I think it's super weird.
It felt very, like, trying too hard to be kind of Lord of the Ringsy.
Yeah,
Yep.
we'll talk about it. But I agree with you guys. I think there are some really cool adaptation choices that are happening, and in some ways, I wish they were more off book than they are. But then in other ways, I think they're introducing problems, especially like in tone, like you're saying, Francis. That I worry if they're making more problems for themselves than they're solving for this season.
Yep.
Yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. I appreciated most of the differences from the book that I noticed. You can definitely tell that it was written to be 2 episodes and not one super long episode, because there's, like, that moment about 50 minutes in where you're just like, this feels like a closing montage. And then it just keeps...
the music swelling.
Yeah, it just keeps
You
going.
you see Will and York together on the boat,
Yeah.
and then you have like a little epilogue thing with Asriel, and then you're like, yes, credits.
It cuts to
Oh, no.
black, and then it comes back,
Yep.
and you're like, "What?"
Yep.
I don't blame them for
Very
that.
weird.
I feel like that was something that was pushed on them, and that they did the best they could.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
Obviously, yeah.
absolutely.
It's not bad. It's just obvious that it was
Yeah.
very, very last minute that someone said, "Hey, can we just do this as a one thing? We'll just have a double slot."
Yeah.
And they go, yeah, I guess. And then they just pasted the end of the second one onto the first one and cut off the scene, the like credits and the opening bit.
Yeah.
I think they did switch a little bit, because I think there are some scenes that probably were in the second episode that got moved prior to that montage to like
Possibly, yeah.
mix it up just a little bit. But yeah, overall you can totally tell what was supposed to be the final scene of episode 1.
Oh, definitely.
All right. Favorite parts.
I didn't have anything like really stand out, but like we've heard me talk about how this is my least favorite part of this story many, many times. So I'm not surprised. I like that they made Asriel and Alma better than they are in the books. Alma especially.
Oh, yeah.
That was great. And I got really excited to see the harpies in the opening credits, which is not really a favorite part of these episodes because it's going to be in every episode, but I don't know. I just like the harpies a lot. So
The trees too. I do like that they redo
Yes.
the credits every season to like
It's so
add
cool.
in extra bits.
It's
Yeah.
always my favorite thing when a show does
Oh,
that.
definitely, yeah.
When the credits came on and like the music started playing, I got like a little bit more emotional and nostalgic than I expected. I was like, oh man, I forgot how much I really enjoyed this.
yep. Same.
Also, did you notice that the middle layer at the end of the credits or the end of the intro is the Malefic world this time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I really liked.
yeah.
Yeah. So I like that our favorites are still just those really pretty opening credits.
Yeah, honestly, best thing about the show.
Yeah.
I really liked the beginning of the episode where like Will is going from world to world by himself, and it's like all of these like really vast landscapes. He talks to some people every once in a while, but it's like he's very lonely and alone, and it's like a whole mood for him. And it felt like he was like getting practice with the knife, and I was like, oh, I like all this better than what was going on in the book, where like the angels are on him immediately.
Yeah, I found just that the angels were really wonderful, and pretty much every decision that's been made with them I thought was well done and tasteful and just added to them in such an interesting way. I thought they were really, really, really good.
Yeah, I know we'd talked a long time ago about how we were kind of worried about how they were going to try and represent them visually. And I think the costuming was a really good decision. They just seem very, like, ethereal and kind of otherworldly and a little bit unnerving, even when they're not transparent. I really like the, like, shimmery gold makeup that they put on, especially the angels with darker skin tones. I think it looks so good.
Yeah, definitely. I remember writing in my personal notes when we first saw them and we see them just in human form, I was like, this is not like the angels at all. This is just not what I imagine. And then seeing Balthamus or Baruch, one of the two, transitioning into, like, angel mode for the first time and being like, nope, that's exactly what I imagined. A little bit taller, but like that is pretty much exactly what I imagined. I was like, oh, this is good. I like this.
I think it's a good mix of, like, having something that the viewer can kind of relate to more when they're having conversations with the humans, and it makes sense that they would be, like, presenting in a more at least corporeal looking form when interacting with humans. But then, when they go transparent, the whole thing just works really well. No?
I think they look too human when they're corporeal. They look too normal. Yeah.
I mean, they are actually humans, is the thing. I'd prefer them to look...
I thought you were...
yeah, no.
I thought you were saying this story, and I was like, wait, I think you've misunderstood something.
They couldn't afford the angel union. Yeah, it was too expensive. They tried to get angels, but they asked for too much.
Well, they didn't have SAG membership, so...
Of course.
But no, my point being that I would much rather them do slightly uncanny humans than bad CGI. Because their CGI in general is amazing, fair. But it would be so much to make them look enough different without being tacky.
Yeah, no, it's fair. I'm not saying that the show could have done better. I'm just saying they're too human looking from what I imagined from the books.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I get the impression, or, like, my headcanon is kind of that's a choice that the angels are making to look more human while they're interacting with humans. And so it doesn't really mess with my understanding from the book in that way.
I understand that. I guess I just think they wouldn't make that choice.
I see.
Especially the one that sticks around with Will.
Yeah. He would, like, be off-putting on purpose.
Yeah.
But they have made both of those characters less of a dick to each other, so...
Yeah.
Will and... Is it Balthamus or is it Baruch? Which one's with Will?
Balthamus is the one that sticks around.
Yeah.
Okay,
Balthazar.
I can't believe that fucking Pullman gave them both B names, but whatever.
I know, what a dickhead.
Yes, so Balthamus. I enjoy as a sort of ha-ha that they're both so much nicer to each other, because the show was like, well, we can't just have them sniping at each other all the time. I'm like, I think you could have.
You could have.
Though,
yeah. I actually missed that about them, and I felt like they were a little too samey to me.
I am glad that we got our Gangel kiss, so.
Me too.
Yeah, that was great.
You gotta have the good angels.
I also really liked the confrontation between Mrs. Coulter and Will here. I like that they tried to remove all that kind of, like, weird sexual stuff Pullman had going on in the book. I thought her motivations were a lot clearer and made more sense than they did to me in the book. I like the way she tries to convince him to stay. It all just, like, felt very true to her character, very interesting. And, like, the way that she's being, like, directly antagonistic to him when he's trying to cut through and break the knife. All of that I thought was really wonderful.
I agree with all of that except the knife scene.
Really? Okay.
I thought that was really poorly plotted out and stupid. But I do agree with their first conversation was so much better than the book and made so much more sense for setting up the breaking of the knife and all of that. That worked really, really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree I wish the breaking of the knife had more space and there was more tension building in that scene. The tension feels wrong, right? Because, like, to me, it felt like the tension is they're coming to get us and not like Will's psychology is having a freak out. You know what I mean?
I see. Yeah.
I think we're reading into it because we read the book. And so we kind of like read into what's going on with Will, but I don't think that it's very obvious given what happens in the show.
I guess
Maybe.
And it's true, like as book readers, we know that the knife is about to break, so it injects a tension into that scene that maybe wouldn't be there if you didn't know that that was about to happen. You'd just be like, why is she weirdly yelling at him while he's having trouble cutting through?
For me, it maybe because I knew the knife was about to break, so that's an interesting spin to put on it. But it felt like Mrs. Coulter was kind of goading him on and making it worse on purpose.
Right.
But then she's just as upset as anyone when the knife breaks, because it means she can't get out of there either.
Right.
So why was she goading him on?
Yeah.
Well, so I think she didn't
it's
expect the knife to break. I think she just thought that she could rattle him into not being able to use it, and then he would be stuck with her, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. Like, again, because I knew that the knife was going to break, it felt like that was Mrs. Coulter's goal. And then immediately she was upset about it. And I was like, this doesn't work for me. But again, if you don't know it's going to break, then that does kind of color that scene differently.
Yeah, I guess I assumed that she was just like, trying to rattle him into not being able to use it and not being able to get away from her. I assumed that she didn't realize that it was even possible to break the knife that way.
Yeah, that's super fair and does make me like that scene a bit more.
Okay, so least favorite part.
I'll go first because I currently hate the Galavespians.
Yep.
They are unlikable. They're kind of shit. I wrote here they have the same feeling as a sort of straight-to-video teen movie like Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and I really stand by that. They don't have the big thing about them, which is a humanizing element. When we see them in the books, we see them with their dragonflies. Mm-hmm. They don't have dragonflies here. They have wingsuits. Now, that just makes... It kind of gives me Artemis Fowl vibes, which isn't inherently bad, but they're not the same fucking thing. They're just completely different. And they were some of my favourite characters in the books.
I really hate how they made them all kind of look exactly the same. Like they all have the same hair and they all just look exactly the same. When in the book, the whole thing about them was they were so individualistic. And I hate that in this one, they've made them all like a monotone.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think they're unlikable. I think they're a-likable. They're like almost not even characters.
Yeah, I expect to get more about them in other episodes, especially now that Selmakia is, snuck through. So probably next time. I think that there are smart adaptation choices in terms of like the influence of the budget and stuff. We're not animating dragonflies. We've got backpacks that have retractable wings so that when we're talking to them, we're not having to animate wings and things like that. I really, really wish that we had more time with them and an explanation of what they are at all for people who haven't read the books and are unfamiliar with them, because they literally come out of nowhere when Asriel is infiltrating the prison, and there's no explanation of like, are they killing those people? Are they knocking them out? How do they knock them out? What is going on?
There's a small bit later when they sting Mrs. Coulter where they say, I just gave her a little bit so she won't die or something. Mm-hmm. But it's like a blink and you'll miss it.
Yeah.
I don't mind that there's no dragonflies because obviously budgets. But I hate, and this is going to sound stupid, that they made them good spies. Because the whole thing about the Galavespians was that they were shit spies other than that they were tiny. So I think you could have given them the wing backpacks and still have them dress like completely
ostentatious is the word I was looking for. Thank you. Yeah.
And that would give them personality.
Yeah.
And you could...
Because they're so arrogant in the book.
Them.
Yeah, they would be like, I refuse to be in the shadows. That's funny. I love that idea.
But they're all like dressed in black and hiding and being good spies. I'm like, those are not Galavespians.
I always imagine them in blue. Don't know why.
Like their skin color?
No, just their clothes. I just imagine them kind of
clothes.
like blue cloth.
I always just imagined them like dressed for a ball. Pretty much, like or like dressed more like just to pick a time period, like Regency-ish, like just really, really every single day dressed super fancy.
Yep, for sure. Me too. Like, I've never even thought about that I don't think he describes the clothing, and it's always in my head has been like complicated, layered, frilly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just like a black cat suit.
No
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
I really didn't like all of the stuff around Mrs. Coulter waiting for Will to show up. Like, why is she waiting for a man to show up to help her? Like, I wanted them to be more off book here, because in the previous season, Mrs. Coulter like has a kind of existential freak out when she meets Mary Malone and is like, what could I have had? And she tries to get Lyra back and fails. And then she like rediscovers herself through murder, and like taming all the specters in Cittàgazze to her will. Like, remember that superhero moment where they're like swirling around the tower and she commands them all?
Of course we remember it, Alan.
Like, where are
dare
they?
you.
Why isn't she using them? Why aren't they guarding her? Why didn't she send them after her enemies who are threatening her daughter if that's her highest priority? Like, this is disconnected from the previous season and everything that they built in a way that doesn't make sense to me for her character.
Mm-hmm. And like, if she wanted Will to show up, why didn't she just wait a minute before taking Lyra?
I get that she banked on her ability to manipulate Will into bringing her along and like being in charge of things. That makes sense to me. But given how powerful she is at the end of the previous season, it's as if she just decided, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to drug my daughter in a house. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I really hated all the World of the Dead stuff that we got.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah.
Like, I think I blacked it out because it was so bad.
So, like, first, it was almost kind of like they made it look like where the kids were being kept at Bolvangar, I think is what was happening there in the first glimpses. Or there was, like, pipes, and I just remember being like, what the fuck? Pipes? Why are there pipes? And then they just made it too visual and brown for some reason instead of like weirdly in her head. Like, I think it could have been way more atmospheric and weird.
The coloration was really like 7. Like,
Yes.
just exceptionally weirdly color graded. And I was like, this. I get you're trying to make it seem not like real life, but it just gave me 7. And I was like, okay, are we going to find a head in a box? Like, sorry, spoilers, but
Right.
like, also that film's been out a very long
Spoilers for
time.
7.
Yeah. I didn't think of that at all, but as soon as you said it, I was like, yep, absolutely. That's what it looked like. It looked like, especially the sort of ending. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Roger and Lyra are talking, and Roger actually says, I'm in the land of the dead. Like, that's how he phrases it.
And it's
Yeah.
like, fuck
He
me,
says,
mate, come
the
on.
land of the dead. Like, what?
Roger!
You have to help me.
I will! I promise I won't let you down!
They're hurting me.
Who? Just tell me where you are and I'll find you!
The land of the dead.
Nobody would say that. Nobody would. And that's like, we're just going to hit them over the head with it because we can't have Lyra and Will like talk about it and work out on their own that it's somewhere they could go. We have to tell them that it's somewhere they could go.
I'm going to make this prediction, is that she never did go to the land of the dead. I think this is everything that is before getting to the land of the dead, because the last moment she's on a literal like ferry boat
Yeah.
and it's like, so she went all the way up to the edge, and Roger's like kind of sucked back in her vision or something like that. So I don't think we're even seeing the land of the dead at all.
That's going to be the suburbs.
The suburbs.
My other, along the same lines also, is when Mrs. Coulter tells Will that Lyra is Eve. What? That's stupid. That's bad. And that is very much just like, we have to remind the audience for the second time in this episode. And because if Will knows, why wouldn't he tell Lyra? Except Lyra can't know because then things don't happen. It's stupid, and I hate it so much.
I guess when she tells Will that she's Eve, isn't it more that she's saying that the Magisterium thinks she's Eve and that's why they're trying to kill her? Like, I got the impression that, I don't know, that didn't bother me that much.
Like, they're crazy religious people and they're going to kill her because of this.
Didn't get the impression that she really bought it or expected him to buy it. She was just kind of like explaining why the Magisterium wants to kill her so much.
Sure. I guess it just felt similar to with the Land of the Dead thing. It just felt like now we can't see them come to their own conclusions. Mm-hmm. The way that we did in the book, where sometimes Lyra and Will would just talk something out and be like, right, this is what we have to do.
So I feel like my least favorite part is super nitpicky and trivial in comparison to the stuff that you brought up, which honestly I don't think I even really noticed. A lot, especially in the first half of the episode and what like would have been episode 1, I feel like a lot of people's faces look weirdly yellow, and not even in the Land of the Dead where everything is through that yellow filter, but like especially Will. I don't know if it's like the makeup or the lighting or what, but I feel like I want to give everyone a test for liver function. They look a little jaundiced, and I'm not someone who usually is paying attention to like colors in that way, but it felt very like eerie and unnatural. And I don't know, maybe it's because we're watching screeners and they'll do some more color correction before the final version, but I don't know. Did anybody else notice that?
Yeah, so like I watched the screeners on my main TV. When you pointed this out, I went back and watched them, and I think that there is a color correction happening that you're picking up on that's prioritizing yellow, because in a lot of those scenes he's like working with the alethiometer, or there's like some dust
you think they
stuff.
wanted to like bring out the gold tones in the alethiometer,
yeah,
and it
really,
had the
really
unfortunate side effect of also making his face look terrible.
Yeah, I think it does.
That
it
makes
doesn't
a
work
lot
with
of
his
sense.
complexion. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I would choose face over alethiometer for sure, but you know.
But it was weird on my TV too, is the point.
Okay, so in the problematic section, I have a comment that is not necessarily something that was problematic, but I felt like I kind of wanted to point out a spot where I felt like they made a decision to differ from the book in order to avoid being problematic, which is that in the book, Mrs. Coulter holds Lyra in a cave in Nepal near the Himalayas, and in this TV show, she is on an island in the Germanic Sea. But yeah, I think they were kind of like avoiding some of that like brown people Eastern mysticism stuff that could have been a danger of hewing exactly to what the book had done. And I thought the location where they had the chapel was gorgeous, like super beautiful, and it really worked visually.
My favorite thing about the chapel is that Mrs. Coulter brought her hair curling accessories.
Yes.
Because she needed to have perfect curls every day. She looked perfect every single time that we saw her, even after she'd been bashed in the head.
That's right.
And I approve, Mrs. Coulter.
It does avoid some problematics. There's also the character of Amma related to that, who is portrayed in this as Amber Fitzgerald Wolfe is the name of the young actress, and she's deaf in the story, and the actress is also a deaf actress. I thought she did a great job.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I liked Amma, so that's different for me.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, she was way better than she was in the books. And also, an interesting note, I think she speaks BSL in this, as the spelling out of the letters is done with 2 hands rather than 1, which would be ASL.
Yeah, definitely did not look like ASL to me.
Yeah, also ASL and BSL are vastly different languages, whilst British English and American English are very similar.
There were some things that were the same, though. Like, I clearly
Somewhat,
recognized thank you.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of cultural interchange because there's a lot of cultural interchange in general between Britain and America.
Right, yes.
But there's, again, the big one, which is the distinguishing factor, is the spelling out letters with 2 hands rather than 1.
Yeah, and I thought this could also be like kind of foreshadowing other communication we might be getting later, but I don't want to spoil anything that might be referencing. But I did also really, really like Balthamus coming out and start signing to her, like because they like he can speak every language and he can also speak this one, and I was like, that's really cool. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to kind of like explicitly put the period on that, you know, if you're going to have disabled characters, it's good to hire disabled actors to play them. So, good job, Bad Wolf.
I really felt or I could be wrong, but this felt like they wanted this actress, so they made the character disabled.
That's how
I like that too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What else do we want to talk about? I know we have a lot more notes, but...
Yeah, I think we just kind of threw out a science or religion section unless we want to just really dig into why insectoid humans is like not an evolutionary path that makes sense.
Or
I don't think that's their actual wings.
Their vocal cords, if they were super tiny, would not make human noises in our human register. Yeah.
That would
Lord
be
Asriel, what are you doing?
Shut the fuck up, Rogue.
Yes.
I'll put you in a box again. No.
Will, you're not allowed to do that. We have to go to see Lord Asriel right now.
Alvin and the subtle knife.
Which, it's so funny, never occurred to me while reading the books. Because I guess when you're like, oh, well, they're talking, and you're not really thinking about, like, the picture, the register of it. And then as soon as you see it in the TV show, I was like, that's not how sound waves work. Let's talk about dad stuff. Because I feel like this is a very dad episode. I mean, I guess parents in general, because we get to see some good Mrs. Coulter stuff too. But I liked the way that the episode, I think, was like very purposefully drawing that contrast between Commander Ogunwe and the way that he relates to his daughters, and then Lord Asriel and the way that he relates to Lyra.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it didn't feel too heavy-handed, to me at least. I don't know how other people felt about it.
Just the first scene did, where Asriel is blatantly staring at Ogunwe, hugging his daughter. That felt a little heavy-handed, but the rest was good. Yeah.
I like that even though Lyra is not active in these 2 episodes, she remains present in that way throughout Asriel's story. So it's not about him and his war. It's like Lyra has a real strong presence through the whole thing.
And then we have every time somebody brings up Lyra around Asriel, and he's just like, she's not important. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's like rolls his eyes so hard you can hear them hitting the back of his skull.
People just keep on bringing... I love that everybody else thinks she's so important, but Asriel is like, no, I've already decided she's not.
But I like the way with that comes the confrontation between Asriel and Stilmaria.
Yes,
where, like,
absolutely.
She is also part of him, and she's like, no, you don't think this, though, mate. Like, what the fuck are you on about? And he's like, no, I do. Yeah. And she's like, no, I am you, and you don't.
Yeah.
You dismissed Lyra too easily. You know what the Magisterium believe about her.
According to the authority, Eve was the mother of creation. Lyra is simply the creation of Marissa and I. She is not Eve, she's a little girl.
She must have some information they need, or some skill we've overlooked.
Other than being able to read the alethiometer, she has very little, I'm afraid. Other than nose for trouble. What? What would you like me to say?
The truth.
This Asriel is different from Book Asriel.
Very.
Yeah. He was really repressing his feelings around his child. There's like real guilt and affection and like confusion around Lyra that I really, really love. It makes the character more rich, but I think it's also like, to me, it speaks about like what actually makes him a bad father, because some part of him knows what he should be doing and he is actively choosing not to do it. And to me, that's what a bad person is. There's a difference to me between someone who thinks that they're doing the right thing, but they're wrong about that, and someone who, like, in some part of themselves knows this is not the right choice and does it anyway.
How would you describe Book Asriel in comparison?
I think he's just colder. I think he's more committed to his cause. There is, like, some friction in him over Lyra, but not to this degree at all.
I feel like in the book, he didn't care at all about her until it was revealed what she did in the world of the dead.
Yeah.
And then he was like, great, this reflects so good on me.
Right. Yeah.
But I do really like the scene in the Intention Craft later on with him and Stel Maria along the same lines, where he's like, I know exactly what we're getting, what we're going for. Shut up.
Right.
And you do get that little bit of him wanting to protect Lyra.
Yeah, because literally right before that scene, he says, you heard what the angel said. The knife is in that world. We have to go get it. So he is saying out loud, what I am doing is about the knife. And then when he gets into the Intention Craft, it won't work because it's not really about the knife.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that was really good use of the Intention Craft.
It's
also,
so good.
as a plot device.
I love it.
Very good.
Great.
It's like they know that they can just think that their audience is smart, but not all the time.
Yeah.
I liked that we got some good Pan in this episode, but I missed Red Panda Pan.
Red Panda Pan's best Pan.
When Pan is basically like begging Mrs. Coulter not to put Lyra back to sleep.
Please. Let us go.
Drink this. If you don't drink your medicine, how will you get better, darling?
You know, awakened the pathos inside me in a very deep way, and also confused me because I thought that when Lyra was knocked unconscious, he was also unconscious.
There have been instances in the book where if Lyra's like just asleep or on the verge of waking up or on the verge of being asleep, where the demon can kind of fight that and be awake a little bit longer.
Okay.
And presumably since she then like knocks her out again, she was kind of on the verge of waking up.
Before we move on too far from Lord Asriel, do we want to talk about the angel torture scene?
Oh, I loved it. Because I think
was really good.
Asriel's already horrible, and he's just, you see him slipping away from humanity into, like, he'll do anything for his goal, and you're like, yeah, but you're falling afoul of that classic trap of being so dedicated. You're sort of becoming a bit evil, buddy.
I thought the technology was very interesting. For all of our discussions about Dust, he's like, Dust cannot get into or out of this chamber, and then he can manipulate it. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, Caitlin would love to do experiments with this. This is
100%.
Yeah, it was basically a separation chamber or a severance chamber. He just thought of another way to use it, which was equally horrifying.
It's also a little bit like the cave, the way they designed that machine. Like a little bit.
I did notice that, yeah.
Yes.
One thing I noticed was when Asriel is explaining to Ogunwe the bond between person and demon, and I was just sitting there thinking, oh, I wonder how you know that bond is so powerful, Asriel, you cheeky fellow. Like, we're just going to briefly skip over the bit of murder you did to find that one out. Okay.
He's like, the authority, they're so terrible to children. That's why I hate them. They're the worst.
You gotta kill a child or two here and there to save them all.
I mean, who hasn't done it? But these guys, look at your daughter. I would never do that.
They just go to an excessive degree, don't they? There's just too much child killing. I mean, you can't have no child killing, but they just go a bit too far for me.
Yeah.
He's like an enlightened centrist, but for child murder.
Poor Roger going through puberty in the land of the dead.
Yeah,
it's not great for you, is it?
I did write down, how did Lyra even recognize you?
Yeah.
You're a different person now.
You look and sound completely different. But, you know...
Lyra!
What can you do? Like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one thing, or that type of stuff I don't mind when it's kind of ridiculous, because indeed, what can you do?
Exactly.
I would have hated it more if they recast, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, I agree.
Oh, yeah, that would have been bad. Don't do that.
Shall we talk about the Magisterium briefly?
Oh, there's so
Yes.
much stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first thing I noticed, or one of the big ones I noticed, was the Swiss Guard, who are all in blue.
Yeah. They're
Which is
out
odd.
here with their berets and their axe things, their halberds.
Halberd. Yeah. But they're also all in blue. I was like, oh, you were nearly there. I mean, you weren't there, but you were nearly there.
I think they wanted to like keep their ridiculousness, but not have them be too ridiculous.
Oh yeah,
'Cause when
because
you
you
see
couldn't be more ridiculous than the Vatican. It's not allowed
Right,
in a
but when-
fantasy film.
When you see a Swiss Guard in real life, though, you think, like, if I had seen a Swiss Guard in a show first, I would literally be like, who made that design? That was dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Like, you should fire them. So I can see
Agreed.
where maybe they attempted to tone it down a bit.
I love their kind of headquarters in Geneva because it looks really like kind of the Acropolis and places like that. Really, really cool design.
I really enjoyed the like two random ass characters you meet beside Father Gomez, who look like the
Ooh,
most
yeah.
milquetoast humans to ever exist.
Yeah.
And
Oh, God, yeah.
absolutely, I would expect them to knock on my door to tell me about their cult.
As you see the third guy waiting in the car sharpening an axe.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, their whole scene with Cardinal MacPhail at the beginning is...
No, he's Father President. MacPhail.
Father President MacPhail. Yeah, that actor is so good and creepy as always, and that whole scene is just so unnerving.
Father Jerome,
What do you think should be done?
the author must be in prison for heresy.
Father Heist. There were dozens more like it hidden throughout the building. All attendees imprisoned, as well as anyone found in possession of the author's work.
Father Gomez. Father Gomez. If you were in my position, what would you do?
Physical atonement. In public. For those charged with possession, I'd choose perhaps the whip. For the author, something which leaves a little more lasting damage. Fear is a gift. It allows people to learn.
I love that he's Lyra's dad.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's
so
really,
good.
really good.
Mr. Wilkeen.
I had to look that one up again.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Yeah, right?
Yes, he's Daphne Keen's dad. I should say.
Yeah.
He's just trying to find his daughter, guys. Come on.
And also that scene where they're all in the helicopter or aeroplane trying to go over to the island, and it pans across all of these characters kind of sitting there stony-faced with their submachine guns, and then to Father Gomez, who's sitting there with his Bible. Ooh, I like that.
Who's the
I did
creepiest
like
one
that.
here? Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Not
this
the
is
guy
his weapon, right?
oiling his weapon. The guy
Yeah.
who's reading the Bible on his way to murder people.
The classic, the usual.
I did like that. I do have some problems with Father Gomez, and on like a story level.
Is he too hot? Because I was surprised by, like, they hired a super, like, young, traditionally attractive actor, and I was not ready for that.
Yeah, he's very hot. He's very, very hot.
See, the thing is, Gomez was so creepy that I can't even think of him as being hot. Because he did such a good job being
He
such a
was
creepy
so good.
little bitch.
I don't know. When him and Will Keen were like almost nose to nose, I was like, just turn your head a little bit more. Just but your lips are right there.
Okay, you know what? Now that you bring that up, yes.
Yeah. There was that energy. And then the spider crawled up on his shoulder, and I was like, never mind.
I was like, don't stop.
My problem with Father Gomez is not his hotness, but help me out with this, because MacPhail like gets some people together, and he's like, this is the most serious shit that ever did serious.
Today,
We have been offered an opportunity. The opportunity to purge this world. To purge these worlds of all that has been ailing them. We are going to release the righteous from sin. Father Gomez will lead you, and the authority will guide you in your sacred mission. Be swift, be brutal, but make no mistake, the girl, Eve, must not be allowed to escape. Retrieve the child, retrieve the mother, and return them to me, dead or alive.
And so I'm going to send you, raw recruit, who I've barely ever met, and 6 dudes on a balloon to go solve this problem that is the most dire and important problem in the universe. I feel like I feel like not enough is done on McPhail's part, especially given how hard the Magisterium has gone after the kids in the previous 2 seasons. This feels like super half-assed to me. I don't understand it.
It does very much feel like we needed to introduce Father Gomez.
Uh-huh.
And you needed to know he was creepy. And that's why this exists. Which is, like, fair.
Yeah.
But
I guess they're trying
unnecessary.
to kind of just streamline things, right? Because in the book, they send the Zeppelins with stormtroopers to the cave.
They send a shitload of Zeppelins.
And, well, there were 2.
They do.
Father Gomez is kind of sent out separately.
Because it's super important and the entire council is brought together. They're like, we need redundancies to this plan. And then while they're gone, we're going to make another plan on top of that in case those 2 plans don't work. It just feels like Father McPhail's like, I am going to go do my ceremony, which is more important. And there's this other thing, which I say with my mouth is important, but none of my actions illustrate that in the plot. I feel like that is not an intentional thing on the writer's part that I'm supposed to like feel like McPhail is a bad leader or any. I feel like it's just not well thought out and well plotted.
You think he would have sent like 10 Zeppelins?
That's what they did in season 2 when they were like, Lee Scoresby is over here.
Maybe they didn't have the budget for 10
Well, maybe
Zeppelins.
Yeah, I mean,
this
maybe
is the Magisterium.
not.
They have
not.
unlimited budget.
Oh,
No, I meant
in the
VFX.
show.
I was going to say, they destroyed most of the Zeppelins that we saw in season 2. So maybe they're just rebuilding the Zeppelins. Like, they destroyed enough of the Zeppelin fleet. They only have 2 working Zeppelins left. The other ones are at the Zeppelin yard.
This feels like a retcon.
Well, they could say that in a line. It'd be like, we'll send out all the Zeppelins. They're like, sir, we're still rebuilding. Remember Lee Scoresby blew them all up. I'd be like, oh, shit, yeah.
A really minor ranty point about the Zeppelins before we go on from them. In that scene I was talking about earlier where it's kind of panning across the troops and Gomez in the Zeppelin, when they close the door to the troop compartment, the light turns from red to green. If you're doing things like parachute drops or really anything, then green means go and red means don't go. It's so
in our world.
if you can't hear the person telling you go, 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 you can tell because the green light is on, so jump out the plane. If it's red, it means stop. I know in America we have trouble with that sometimes. Turn right on red, sure, but overall, it's just this tiny little detail. I was like, guys, you could have just
Does
got it the
England
other
not
way
turn
around.
left on red?
No, because it's fucking absurd.
They also don't have blinking red lights at all.
Red should just mean one thing, and that is stop and do not go.
The temple and the Zeppelins are in Lyra's world, so they might be opposite.
That, again, is very retconny.
I didn't even notice whatever it is. You're like, I can't even.
Oh no, I know it's such a minor point, but it's just one of those little things. I'm like, guys,
Maybe they did do it on purpose, though, just to make it seem a little more off, like to have it feel different.
I just think they liked the lighting with green better.
More to just a small thing on Gomez, that whole scene where he's introduced, where Father President McPhail is like asking these three dudes what to do with these, I don't know, illegal poetry. I remember sitting there and just being like, why the fuck is this happening? This doesn't matter. Why are we talking about illegal poetry? And then at the end, when they're like, oh, Father Gomez, I'm like, oh, that's why this is happening. Gotcha. Because we're meeting Gomez. Wow. But I just can't help but think, if you'd not read the books and you weren't expecting Gomez, like, what? That scene would be so stupid.
I did really want at the time when he's putting to the three of them, what should we do with the person who wrote this book or was found with these books? And Gomez says, we should torture him and kill him and make an example to everyone. I really wanted the other two to look at each other being like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
No, we shouldn't. That's a bad... Oh, guys, we're trying not to be evil. I don't know if you got the memo.
They should have looked at each other and been like, oh, I wish I would have said that. Like,
fucking try hard, God.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say, just apart from all of that talk about Gomez, I don't like that they made him kind of the leader of these troops, just because I liked him better as a creepy, mysterious ghost.
Mm-hmm. That was kind of the whole point, was he's meant to be essentially an agent where they're like, yep, we are going to deny that you exist. We are just not... You are free to go and do what you feel you need to do. We think you are that dedicated that you can just go and you'll be an agent for good for us.
What do you think about him and Mrs. Coulter's conversation?
It was written well, it was acted well. And I kind of liked that they were having a standoff. I hate that they had this random ass dude see through Mrs. Coulter's lies.
Yeah.
Like, that's who she is. She's the person who can make anybody believe her lies. And they just had this random ass dude see through her lies.
Yeah.
For the most part. I mean, I guess maybe she kind of brought it back a little bit at the end. But I hate that. When they go into the temple thingy and they sit down and they have a nice conversation, or not a nice, you know what I'm saying? I liked that scene.
What was your plan? Would you have kept her unconscious forever? Run from world to world, trying to escape the alethiometer? Forever? You're not stupid. Quite the opposite. You knew we would find her, eventually. And destroy her. That is her destiny. You brought this fate upon her. You gave her the terrible punishment of her existence. And now when she reaches the hands of Father President McPhail, death. Why have you been prolonging her pain in this way?
I don't know. Sorry. I did not know what else to do, Father.
That is not true. The answer was so simple and you knew it. All along, a truly loving act would have been to let her die. To drift off in a sleep so deep that no one could ever hurt her. In her mother's arms. It is time for you to let her go now.
To kill one's own child takes a kind of strength I do not possess.
But you do. You have greater strength than you know. Please.
Perhaps you were right about that strength.
But no, that whole outside thing where he immediately didn't believe her. No. So I have a question. When Mrs. Coulter is like wistfully staring out the window and says, "I thought he'd be here by now," when I first saw that, I thought she was talking about Asriel, and I was extremely upset.
Me too.
I was just like, what? No. But I assume she was talking about Will. Is that what we think?
Did she? So she
Yes.
knew. She knew about the knife, and I guess she wanted Will with the knife there to help defend Lyra.
Her plan seems to be holding Lyra to keep her safe, but also the dual purpose of luring Will with the knife, and then they will be able to go anywhere and escape anyone, the three of them, because of the knife.
I see.
So basically, her plan is to get access to the knife. I really hate it. I really hate that her plan is like, I'm waiting for a man to come.
I think I didn't really notice that as much when I was first watching the episode, but the more that we talk about it, the more I don't like it. Up until this point, her whole MO has been to not rely on anybody.
But she could be like held in, I don't know, like the Tower of Angels surrounded by a million specters, and only Will as a child can get in, you know, and like the Magisterium adults can't get in to get her. And then she has access to the knife because only Will can get to her.
Even the same place, just with specters.
Yeah, exactly. Like she can make it adult proof, and she can make it so only Will can get through. And then she'll be like, "Oh, Will, you've come exactly the way that I thought you would," you know?
Isn't that still waiting to be saved by a man? Like, I don't see how that fixes your complaint.
That manipulates the situation to like, so that she gets, you know, the thing that she wants.
I see.
Instead, she's like very vulnerable while she's waiting. Like she's very anxious.
I almost think the book was better because she genuinely just thought they were safe there. You know, she didn't have a plan. She was just like, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why I'm doing this, but here we are.
Yeah. I stopped us earlier from talking about the opening Lord of the Rings animation, but maybe we should do that now. It feels like that's speaking directly to us as the audience. It's not.
It felt like a recap, but they made it.
Because it was?
Well,
pretty.
But you
know what I mean.
I don't feel like we knew that information necessarily from the show at any point. But it was like, who is this being told to? Like, shouldn't that be said to Asriel? Shouldn't that? Like, why are you telling us that?
It was strange because it felt kind of quite diegetic, or it could have been, except that we didn't know who the audience was. Like, if they'd have played it into that a little bit more, someone being told this as the history for a reason,
yeah,
that would make more sense. But as it was just, yeah. But it was like a diegetic style without actually being diegetic, which just makes you ask the question, who's being told this?
I do think it's funny that at the beginning we were all like, yeah, we thought this was like pretty good, pretty fun. And then I feel like we've been nitpicking for 2 hours. But
what else are we going to do for 2 hours?
That's what we
yeah,
do.
This is why the dear listeners listen to us.
Yes. I mean, to be fair, I don't think I said anything was good. I said I wanted the next episode already. Well, I did. I meant like, this is my least favorite part. Like, let's get through it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's tear it apart while we're getting through it.
Because it's more fun.
I have other random notes. I don't know if I talked about this last season, but I hate the knife.
Oh, just like the physical design of the knife?
The design of it.
Yeah, they made it pretty, sure, but it looks like a toy. It never looks sharp. Anytime he pulls it out, I'm like, that is plastic. You could buy that at the dollar store.
You know, the funny thing, well, this was, so we talked in the previous recording about the fact that I was at MTM Comic-Con and they had a panel on His Up Materials, and Amir Wilson was asked, do you have the knife now? And he said yes, but actually he'd managed to chip a bit off it, I think, by dropping it. I was like, that is so on brand.
Yep. That's great. Like, I don't know. Like, when he's cutting into... Like, it just doesn't look...
It doesn't feel weighty.
Yes. That's
it's not
maybe
subtle.
that. It is not subtle. And it never looks sharp.
Yeah,
And
it doesn't.
I
It
feel
looks like a
like
spoon
when
you give to a toddler.
it looks like a toddler safe knife.
Yeah.
And I just wish it looked.
Safe world destroyer.
This knife is safe for you, toddler.
I have a lot of all caps notes that are just like Yorick when he's killing anybody. I'm just like, yes,
okay,
just kill
I feel
people.
like
You're great,
he
Yorick.
was more invincible to machine gun fire than he should have been, right?
Yeah, I did feel like he got very lucky, considering he's a very big target and his armor doesn't cover that much of him.
Yep. I really liked the lodestone resonator.
That was a fun little bit of how to make that something an audience can enjoy and not just, oh, they're off over there with a rock.
Playing cello on the rock. Yeah, I definitely preferred it, though I did again feel it was slightly too high tech for the Galavespians, for my view of the Galavespians. But that is just me. I do accept it. I just I liked it. I thought it was better than, again, a rock with a bow. But also, it's really big for the Galavespians. Like, think about how big the Galavespians are. If that's their thing, it's like a screen the size of a wall in your house.
Yes.
Yeah. They made a giant one for him.
They send them out with a tiny one, but they receive it in a movie theater.
Exactly.
Yeah. It really doesn't make sense for quantum entanglement either. It should be, you know what I mean?
None of it makes sense.
But they didn't say quantum entanglement, so it's fine,
They didn't,
actually.
thank God.
Which is smart, yeah.
Yeah.
But it looked cool. That's all I cared about. I was like, oh, that's neat.
Yeah, it did look cool.
Yeah.
It looked really, really, really good. I liked it.
But going back to, there is that moment at the end of the episode where Will shoots one of them. And
oh, yeah, that was
my God. Like,
God,
that was a good moment.
Amazing acting
Gut punch.
there by Amir Wilson.
So good. And how he immediately puts the gun down and is like, nope, not doing that again.
Yeah. Heartbreaking.
See, we like some things.
Did anything come of the spider talk in the chat? I don't know if you recognize.
Gomez's spider looks to me like a huntsman. It's kind of hard to tell from the little that we see. The body shape's not right for anything like a saltacid, so it's kind of either a huntsman or a wolf spider, which would make sense because he is kind of foreshadowing that he is a huntsman.
Oh, okay. I get that.
So
okay.
I can get behind it. I will probably see more of it, and if we do, then I'll let you know. I didn't think his demon was meant to be a spider, though, was it?
Yeah, I was about to ask, do we know what his demon is from the book? I don't remember it at all.
We definitely do.
I thought it was it wasn't an invertebrate, but I thought it was like
was a beetle or a butterfly or something?
It was a beetle. It was like a beetle, a stag beetle,
You're right.
jewel beetle.
I guess the only other interesting thing that I had to say, maybe, I don't know, maybe this isn't even interesting to anyone else, but I was watching this episode with my mom, because I'm visiting my parents right now, and in addition to having to explain all of books 1 and 2 to her as we were kind of going through things, when they get to the point where Mary Malone is doing her divination with the I Ching sticks, and my mom just goes, "Oh, I have some of those," and I was like, "Oh, of course you do."
Can confirm he has a beetle demon in the book. That was pretty much all I had. Did anybody else have anything they want to cover?
I thought this was really important, and I thought it was actually really well done. The little speech that the Archangel Alarbus gives to Asriel while he's in the resonator, I should have brought it up then when we talked about it, but why would I do that?
What does he want? The end of this! Dust is not for you to understand. Conscious beings have become dangerously independent. He will lead a permanent inquisition into every world, on every being, until they understand complete obedience. And with it, we will bring an end to the freedom of thought and will control dust once and for all. How do I find him? The kingdom of heaven is not yours to enter.
You are just really saying the theme out loud, right? Because this is like the
we
whole
getting
crisis.
A bit Nazi-ish, maybe.
Well,
Just
it's not just
maybe.
Nazis, but it's like, this is what the crisis of all the adults in the story is, right? Like, Coulter is literally keeping Lyra drugged to stop her independence. She's like, "Mom, I want to leave."
Yeah.
And she's like, "No, you have to stay here."
But again, it's like it really has the sort of totalitarian vibes, doesn't it? It's like, no, there must be order.
I mean, it
100%.
feels just extremely Calvinist to me, right? Because it's like, it's a bit circular, right? They have a theology that says that there's not really free will, that everything is preordained in the way that God likes it, but then they're just trying to actually make that true.
I will say that scene or that bit didn't feel like they were beating me over the head with it like some of the other things we mentioned.
Oh no, I didn't mean it like beating me. I thought it was really well done, and I was like, you were just saying, like, I loved how it was done. I was like, oh, you are saying the thing.
Oh, just sometimes when shows do like state the theme out loud, it can be pretty cringy.
Yeah,
but I thought they did it really well there.
100%. I think it also plays into the thing that Asriel says to Gunway about death is a lie. He's like, there's something going on with dust and death, and we're going to kill death. And Gunway's like, I think you're kind of nuts. There's a system of control happening with death that Asriel is like onto that's going to be explored throughout the season as well. And it has to do with this whole conscious beings are too independent, and we need to lock down on that. I thought that was a really nice job of like laying out, here are the big themes for this season in the first episode. So I really enjoyed it.
I just saw that we have a spoiler section down here. I have not been avoiding spoilers at all.
Unfortunately, it does mean that we can't use the Asriel thing that we've used for every TV season of like, everyone's special.
I mean, we can throw it in somewhere. We have to.
Oh, we
It's
will.
part of who we are.
It'll just get stamped in here like obnoxiously over us talking. Who has a soundboard?
I do. And I actually think I have it still assigned to one of my buttons, but I don't remember which
That's
one.
hilarious.
Press them all. Press them all.
Press them
I don't know
all.
if you guys will be able to hear them.
Probably not.
Nothing happened.
Everyone's special!
Oh, shit.
Nice.
That scared the shit out of me that I got it.
Exceptionally loud, but so good.
Now at least I know what button it is.
Okay, well, that's it for this week. Next time, we will most likely be talking about episodes 3 and 4 of the TV show, because as far as we know, they are going to be dropping 2 episodes at a time, even though they are not edited together like one large episode, the way episodes 1 and 2 were. So we should have 4 TV analysis episodes where we'll be covering 2 of the episodes at a time. Yes, so next time, episodes 3 and 4 of the TV show. If you like our podcasts, please take some time to leave us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. And wow, this is the first time that we're doing our outro post Twitter explosion. So we'll see.
Am I going to have to add my Mastodon on here soon?
Stay tuned. We may have a Mastodon presence at some point. But for now, I'm Anya, and you can follow me on Twitter at StrangelyLiteral. That's strangely, then Literl.
I'm Caitlin, and you can follow me on Twitter at InferiorCaitlin, or on Instagram if you want to see what I'm reading at InferiorKateReads.
I'm Francis, and you can follow me on Twitter if at the time of release Twitter still exists, at Francis Windrum.
Follow the show on Twitter at MOTPod, or send us emails at contact@hollowedgroundmedia.com.
And don't forget to whip people for their poetry.
Go back to kindergarten, Alan. You need to work on your counting.
1, 2, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, no, but we actually do have to count.
1, 2.
The Lady Salmakia poisons Mrs. Coulter to unconsciousness, and then...
Oh, no!
How did the Willy and Lyra happen then?
Because she had to change my perfect summary, which did not have that in it.
And he did. to great mirth on all fronts. Right. Try that again.
Sorry.
Right. Why can't I have a push to talk for you?
Sorry.
Right. Right, least favourite parts.
Wait. I sorry. I was holding back.
You got more.
Oh,
I have
okay.
more.
Sorry,
Wait.
my apologies. Least favourite part, go on.
They could have had them, like, pierce each other's head cavities while they were having sex.
They could have.
Because that's exactly what we were talking about, yeah.
More dragon... I would like more dragonfly human fusion in this... Okay, never mind. Again.
Give me a dragonfly human, but none of the good bits.
Yeah, just all of the most
all the
horrifying
weirdness.
bits.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, this is like maybe like a Welsh thing on the, I don't know. Like, I don't know England. So like, but that's what I thought was happening.
I mean, Wales is not England, but you know.
Okay. Yeah, that's,
had to be a
I get
had to
you.
be a pedant there.
Yeah, I get you.
I'm sure the Welsh people would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes, they fucking would.
I'll admit that me saying Pullman is like a cheap thing that I hate when I'm listening to a podcast and someone does that. I'm like, you don't know that dude. Like, you've never had a conversation with him and been like, well, this is what I thought, Alan. And like, I really don't know what Pullman intended at all.
I guess neither do I. That was the feeling I got.
So I think you're right to point that out.
In the book, I think.
Just with his face.
No. Never talked in the books.
Yes, he did.
No, we do. Yeah, we talk about this.
Where?
Yeah, he for sure talked in the books because we talked about it and we were like, I don't remember this happening. And it's funny
Spoilers,
because
by
you've
the way.
edited it from your mind already.
Yeah.
Even though we talked about it.
Okay. Like, I know...
Him and
I don't
Mrs.
know.
Coulter
I
have a
remember
whole
Mrs.
conversation.
Coulter. I remember Mrs. Coulter talking to him, but I don't remember there being monkey dialogue on the page.
No, he
No,
talks
because it was
for
very...
sure.
We talked about it specifically because it was so weird.
Yeah.
No, I believe you, because my brain is mush, but I hate it again, I guess.
Don't worry, you'll forget soon again.
Also, the magisterium, whatever the fuck they're called.
Magisterium.
Catholic Church in another coat. 3 Catholic churches in a trench coat.
Right.
They're...
I just almost died, but I muted my mic, so all's well.
You're welcome, editor, whoever that might be.
Yeah.
And this young priest, this young, hot, fit priest who's so hot, he like sees right through her immediately.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you doing? Why did you just do that? Yeah, like Lord Boreal is not waiting for Will and Lyra to come and like he's manipulated them into doing what he wants and bringing to him what he wants.
I see.
You could do that again.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. When you first started talking, that was going to be like, yeah, he's not waiting for them. He's dead, Alan.
He's very dead.
Yeah. That was my thought also. We're not nitpicky about everything.
Yeah.
We liked 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
Will killing the soldier. And then them stating the theme out loud.
And Father Gomez being hot.
We'll work it out. We can always do
Do
1,
we
2,
want
and then
do we
3,
want to
4.
talk about that to the audience at all? Like, to the best of our knowledge, there's only going to be 4
episode dumps.
Broadcasting. Yeah. That's what they're called, dumps. That's the official industry term. There's going to be 4 dumps.
Or HBO is going to take 4 dumps all over your chest. You're welcome.